There is a tree blooming on my street right now, and it is the prettiest thing on the block. Snow-white flowers, a perfect lollipop shape, the kind of tree that makes you slow down on your morning walk just to look at it. For about 40 years, this exact tree was the most planted street tree in America. Cities put in thousands of them. Builders planted one in front of nearly every new house, and it was sold as completely safe because it was bred on purpose at a government research station to be unable to spread. Not one seed ever. But today, if you plant that same tree in Ohio, Pennsylvania, or South Carolina, you are breaking the law. And depending on where you live, some of the 10 plants I'm going to show you today can bring fines as high as $5,000. Now, I spend most of my time on this channel showing you what to grow. Today is the opposite. These are the 10 plants you must never put in the ground, no matter how pretty the tag looks. And stay with me all the way to the end, because the way that harmless tree broke its own design, the one specific thing that happened in ordinary American front yards, is something almost nobody ever explains. Once you hear it, you will read every plant tag at the garden center differently. I'm Jake, though most folks around here know me as Backyard Buddy. 3 years ago, I was the guy who killed houseplants, and then a bunch of green onion ends I tossed at the trash can missed, landed in a glass of water on the counter, and sprouted. Since then, I have regrown hundreds of plants from kitchen scraps on my balcony and windowsills. My grocery bill is down by nearly a third, and my neighbor Gloria upstairs, who taught me half of what I know, has been growing on her balcony for 20 years. Now, you know me. Every week I show you things to grow. Green onions in a glass, celery hearts on the windowsill, potatoes in a 5-gallon bucket on the balcony. Today is the one video where I do the opposite, and I am doing it because of something that almost happened to me. 2 springs ago, I nearly bought running bamboo for a privacy screen out on my balcony rail. Gloria talked me out of it in about 90 seconds, and that plant is coming up on this list. Here's the problem in plain terms. Plant laws in this country are written state by state. A shrub sitting legally on a shelf in one state can be banned 20 miles away across the state line, and a mail-order catalog will happily ship you a plant your own state prohibits. So, the old rule most of us grew up on, that if the store sells it, it must be fine, simply is not true anymore. Invasive plants do tens of billions of dollars of damage in this country every single year. And when a mistake happens in a home garden, the bill lands on regular folks. Removal costs, neighbor disputes, and in some states, fines that can climb as high as $5,000. That is $5,000 for a plant. And keep that pretty white tree from the start of the video in the back of your mind, because we are building toward it the whole way, and I promise you the ending is worth the wait. Now, before I start the countdown, let me show you the flip side of all this, because the safest garden is the one you grow on purpose. Everything I grow on purpose comes out of a book I put together called The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. Zero waste, zero experience, free food. It is the complete 30-day plan for turning the scraps your kitchen already throws away into growing food, and I wrote it for absolute beginners, folks with zero experience, zero yard, and close to zero budget. Inside, you get 31 regrowable crops, each with its own plain instructions. You get the $10 starter kit, gathered mostly from things you already own. You get the day-by-day plan from your first glass of water to your first harvests, and you get honest troubleshooting for when a scrap decides to sulk. The whole thing is $17, marked down from $47, and my own grocery bill dropped by nearly a third, doing exactly what is in those 172 pages. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you used to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, buddy, phone down whenever you are ready, because it is time for number 1, and I wanted to start with the worst of the whole bunch. Number 1, Japanese knotweed. Picture bamboo-looking canes, heart-shaped leaves, and pretty sprays of little white flowers in late summer. The Victorians brought it over from Asia as a fancy ornamental, and I understand why, because it really is handsome. But underneath that plant is one of the most destructive root systems in the gardening world. The roots can drive 10 feet straight down and spread 30 feet or more sideways, and they push up through asphalt driveways, patio slabs, and the cracks in house foundations. Over in England, this plant is so feared that banks have refused mortgages on houses that have it growing nearby. Here at home, it sits on banned or restricted lists in a long line of states, from New York clear across to Washington. And here's the part that makes it so dangerous for a regular gardener. A piece of root the size of your thumbnail can grow a whole new plant. That is a thumbnail-sized piece. So if you dig it up and toss it in the compost or run it through a chipper, you have not killed it. You have planted it in a dozen new places. If you find knotweed on your property, do not compost it. Call your county extension office and ask how your state wants it handled. And if you ever see it for sale under a friendlier name like fleeceflower, walk right past it. Number 2, running bamboo. This is the one Gloria saved me from. I wanted a green privacy screen for the balcony, and a live bamboo hedge sounded perfect, until she explained the difference between clumping bamboo and running bamboo. Clumping bamboo stays politely where you put it. Running bamboo sends runners underground, sideways, sometimes 20 feet or more, and those runners come up in the neighbor's flower bed, under the fence, through vegetable gardens, and in bad cases right through pool liners and pavement. That is why New York made it illegal to sell or plant certain running bamboos back in 2015. Connecticut went further and holds the person who planted it legally responsible when it crosses a property line, with setback rules written into state law. And a number of towns around the country now issue fines that add up day after day until the bamboo is brought back under control, which is how a pretty hedge turns into a bill with a comma in it. If you love the look, and honestly I still do, plant a clumping variety instead, or keep bamboo in a container where those runners have nowhere to go. On a balcony like mine, a big pot is the whole answer. Number 3. Purple leucostrife. In July, this plant is genuinely one of the most beautiful things you will ever see, tall spikes of rich purple flowers that bloom for weeks. That beauty is exactly how it conquered half the country. One mature plant can produce more than 2 million seeds in a single year. Let me say that again, because it sounds made up. One plant, more than 2 million seeds. Those seeds wash into ditches and wetlands, and the leucostrife grows so thick that it crowds out cattails and the native plants that ducks, frogs, and songbirds depend on, until a living marsh turns into a solid purple carpet with almost nothing living in it. Roughly 30 states have banned it outright, and in several of them, planting it can bring a real fine. Now, if you love those purple spikes, and who does not, there is a native lookalike called Blazing Star that gives you nearly the same tall purple bloom, feeds the butterflies, and never gets you a letter from the state. Same color, none of the trouble. Number 4. Water hyacinth. If you have a little pond or a water barrel garden, you have seen this one for sale, a floating plant with glossy leaves and a lavender bloom, usually just a few dollars. Cheap and gorgeous, and in the warm parts of the country, it is a monster. Water hyacinth can double itself in as little as 2 weeks. A few plants become a raft, the raft becomes a blanket, and the blanket seals off a waterway, blocking boats, choking out fish, and clogging the intakes on water systems. Florida alone spends millions of dollars every single year just cutting it back. It is illegal to possess or sell in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, and a number of other states, and releasing it into a natural waterway can bring some of the steepest plant fines on this whole list. And that is the real rule I want you to take from this one, even beyond the hyacinth itself. Nothing from a pond or aquarium ever goes into a lake, a creek, or a storm drain. Not the plants, not the water. If you want floaters for a patio tub, ask your local nursery which natives are legal in your state. Number 5. Giant hogweed. This is the one plant on the list that can put you in the hospital, so I want to slow down and take this one carefully. Picture Queen Anne's lace, that lacy white roadside flower, but grown to 14 feet tall, with flower heads the size of umbrellas and a thick stem with purple blotches. People have actually planted it on purpose over the years because it looks so dramatic. But the sap of giant hogweed reacts with sunlight on your skin, and that reaction causes severe, blistering burns that can scar for years. If the sap gets in your eyes, they can damage your sight. That is why this is one of the very few plants on the federal noxious weed list, which makes it illegal to plant, sell, or move across state lines anywhere in the country on top of the state penalties. If you think you have it, do not touch it. Do not take a string trimmer to it, because that throws the sap. Take a photo from a safe distance, then report it to your state agriculture department, and in most states, they will come deal with it for you, free of charge. And remember that white flowering tree from the start of the video. Its story is stranger than anything so far, because that one was never supposed to be able to spread at all. We are getting close. Number 6. Kudzu, the vine that ate the South, and the strangest part of its story is that we asked for it. It arrived at the World's Fair in Philadelphia in 1876 as a lovely Japanese garden vine, and in the 1930s, the government actually paid farmers to plant it across the South to hold eroding soil. It held the soil all right. Then it kept going. In the heat of summer, kudzu can grow about a foot a day. That is a foot of new vine every single day, and it does not stop at the field edge. It swallows fences, then trees, then barns, then power lines, and today it covers millions of acres across the southern states. It is listed as a noxious weed and is illegal to plant in many states, and even where it is technically legal. Planting it is volunteering your property and your neighbor's property for a fight that never ends. If you need fast cover for a fence or a slope, native options like trumpet honeysuckle or Virginia creeper give you green in one season without eating the garage. Number 7. English ivy. This one is going to sting a little because ivy is the classic look. Brick house, ivy on the wall, ivy spilling out of window boxes. I get it. But out in the landscape, English ivy is a slow-motion tree killer. It climbs a trunk, smothers the bark in shade, and adds so much weight and wind resistance that whole trees come down in storms that they would otherwise have shrugged off. On the ground, it spreads into a thick mat where almost nothing native can grow. Oregon was so fed up that it banned the sale of English ivy years ago, and it sits on noxious weed lists in other states, especially in the Northwest and along the East Coast. Now, a pot of ivy on a shelf indoors hurts nobody. And I am not here to make you feel bad about the planter by the front door. The line is the ground. Never plant it in the earth, and never let a potted one trail down and root into a bed. If you want that soft evergreen carpet under trees, look at native wild ginger or foam flower instead. Gloria has wild ginger in a shady corner of her balcony, and it is lovely. Number 8. Japanese barberry. For decades, this was the landscaper's best friend. Deer will not touch it, it shrugs off drought, and the deep red leaves look sharp against a green lawn. So it went in along about 1 million driveways, mine included when I was a renter years back, before I knew a thing. Here is what changed everybody's mind. Barberry grows in dense, thorny thickets, and inside those thickets, the air stays humid, which happens to be exactly what ticks need to survive. Researchers in the Northeast measured it, and they found far more of the black-legged ticks that carry Lyme disease in barberry patches than in the woods around them. So this shrub is not just crowding out native plants, it is quietly farming ticks next to your walkway. New York, Pennsylvania, Maine, Minnesota, and West Virginia have all banned or begun phasing out its sale, and more states are lining up. If you love that dark red foliage, a native shrub called ninebark comes in wine-colored varieties that give you the same look, feed the birds, and do not run a bed and breakfast for ticks. Number 9. Burning bush. Every October, this shrub turns a red so bright it looks plugged in, and that fall color is the entire reason it is planted everywhere from bank parking lots to backyard borders. The trouble is, what happens after the show? Birds eat the little berries, fly off into the woods, and plant burning bush all through the forest understory, where it leafs out early, shades out the wildflowers, and takes over the ground layer acre by acre. New Hampshire and Massachusetts have banned it, Pennsylvania is phasing it out, and nurseries in several more states are dropping it ahead of the rules. And this is one where the native swap is honestly an upgrade. Red chokeberry and Virginia sweetspire both give you that glowing red fall color, plus flowers in spring and food for the birds that does not end up planting a problem 2 counties away. Which brings us at long last to number 10. The tree I promised you. And now, I get to tell you the part nobody explains. Number 10. The Bradford pear and its close cousins sold under the name Chalily pear. That is the snow-white tree from my street, the one that was the most planted street tree in America for a generation. Here's its story, and I think it might be the most important 5 minutes on this channel all year. Back in the 1960s, plant scientists at a government research station in Maryland took a wild pear from China, the Chalily pear, and selected one single perfect tree. Fast-growing storm of white flowers, tough as nails, and best of all, it set no fruit. None. And the reason it set no fruit is the key to everything. Pear trees cannot pollinate themselves, and they cannot pollinate an identical twin. Every Bradford pear ever sold was a graft, a clone, an exact genetic copy of that one original tree. So a whole town full of Bradford pears was, genetically speaking, one single tree talking to itself. No partner, no fruit, no spread. The design was genuinely brilliant, and for years it truly worked. But the Bradford had one flaw. Its branches all rise from one point on the trunk, and in ice and wind, grown trees split apart like dropped melons. So the nurseries fixed it. They released new Chalily pear varieties with stronger branches sold as Cleveland Select, Aristocrat, Chanticleer, and folks planted those right alongside the old Bradfords. And that was the moment the whole thing broke. Because those new varieties were different trees genetically, and the instant 2 different Chalily pears stood within a bee's flight of each other, the pollen finally had a partner. The sterile tree started setting fruit. Starlings and robins ate the little pears and carried the seeds to fields and roadsides, and the wild offspring grew back mean in dense thickets armed with thorns up to 3 inches long. That is the one specific thing that happened in ordinary front yards. Nobody smuggled anything, and nobody lied. Neighbors simply planted 2 different name brands of the same tree, and America's front yards accidentally reassembled a wild species, one bee at a time. Today, planting any Chalily pear is banned in Ohio, banned in Pennsylvania, and banned in South Carolina, with more states studying it. If you already have one, take a breath, because existing trees are grandfathered in everywhere the bans exist. You are not in trouble. But the lesson goes on every plant tag you will ever read. Sterile today does not mean sterile forever, and the brand name on the front of the tag matters less than the species name printed in small letters on the back. Check the species against your state's invasive list before anything goes in the ground. Your county extension office will tell you for free. And that is really the whole idea behind everything I do on this channel, growing on purpose instead of by accident. The 30-day kitchen scrap garden protocol walks you through 31 crops that are safe, cheap, and probably in your kitchen tonight, laid out day by day for 30 days for $17 instead of $47. That is less than the removal bill for one bad shrub, and it starts paying you back at the grocery store in the very first week, the same way it cut my own bill by nearly a third. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you used to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So there it is, 10 plants to leave at the store, 1 tree that broke its own design, and 1 glass of water on a windowsill that is always a safe place to start. Tell me in the comments which of these 10 is growing near you right now and what state you are in. I would love to see a map of this build in the comments section, and I read every single one. Next time, I am going to show you how one $2 bag of dried beans from the grocery store turned into a whole railing of green beans on my balcony, and the overnight jar test that tells you in 12 hours which beans will sprout and which ones will just sit there and rot. Don't throw it away, grow it. I'll see you next time, buddy.